Good afternoon. How are you? Well, today is a little uncomfortable. It's 52 degrees, but the sun isn't out. You see, that's the killer. And the humidity's at 40%. The wind's at 4 miles an hour, so we shouldn't have the noise we had yesterday. For some, or maybe many of you, I don't have a I don't have a statistic on us, the Dirt Road Gang, but some of you will be gardening. Spring is here as of the 21st, and you may be going into your garden, and the one caution I would make, which you will think, if you haven't considered it before, a terrible idea, is don't use Roundup. Don't use Roundup. You may think it's the only way to kill your weeds. Now, Holly, who spends more time than I do in the garden, so it's a little unfair for me to suggesting what work you should do, but I have done this myself. And one way I had what they call the Jeffersonian garden at one point, this is years ago, and I put down planks to control the weeds, and then left smaller spaces for my victory garden, if you will, and raised quite a bunch of good vegetables, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of work too. So what is the trick? You pull up the weeds. You have to go do it yourself, recruit the local Boy Scout troop. If you have a large family, get them all out there pulling weeds, and then put it in a compost pile. That's how you avoid Roundup. Now, why do I say this about Roundup? Well, let's talk about a guy, John Barnes in Georgia. He believed his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was as a result of Roundup, and he filed a case about it. Now, the culprit, I think most agree, is glyphosate, Glyphosate. And no less than the World Health Organization said that it was probably carcinogenic to humans. Now, many years ago, I had a friend, and we rode a fair amount over hill and dale, fences and stone walls and stuff that luckily never damaged either one of us. And so I hesitate to think about getting a spring horse that'd be quiet that I would ride, because I don't know if there is such a thing. I mean, not if you do any riding for any period of time. But I came to his house once, and there was a bunch of us there, and he and his wife were distressed because they had this terrible rash all over them, and they had been using Roundup in their garden. And I didn't think much of it at the time. It was just a part of the conversation. Now, there isn't a terrible ending to that story, because I haven't been in touch, and as far as I know, that was one incident, and he probably stayed away from it himself after that. But here's the scary thing about it. It is in 90% of the food products, including honey. So it's hard to say, whatever you do, don't use Roundup and stay away from that stuff. And when it's everywhere. And governments aren't doing anything about it. Here in Virginia, as best I could tell, because I thought of it early today, because of a judgment in the case involving Barnes, and it is only, as far as I can tell, restricted in Charlottesville, Virginia. That's it. The whole state, and a lot of agriculture, historically and currently. And I sit on the, as you know, on the Soil and Water Conservation District Board, where I am, and so I focus on these things maybe more than others. Now, the United States hasn't done anything about it either. And, we've been talking about pollinators recently, and Roundup is toxic to bees. And at a recent meeting of Soil and Water District, this charming young lady who's on one of our kind of intern programs is studying pollinators. She's studying the plants and so forth that are the pollinators. But the bees come to these plants and then continue to carry our gardens and so forth, the things that are necessary for us to have an agriculture that means food. Now, Foreign nation states have banned it, and it took a while for that to happen, but it did happen. So I started with John Barnes, and what happened to him? Well, the thing that happened to him is that at the end of this grueling trial, I think it started in 2019, the case, he got a $2.5, you want to guess the rest of it? $1 billion verdict. $65 million in compensatory damages. $2 billion in punitive damages. So this is a very strong statement by jurors of how dangerous and terrible this is. But it's another example of we're not doing anything about it. Now, to the extent that was true in the Biden administration and years earlier, do you think we're going to do anything about it? Ed Koch used to walk the streets, and when he saw people, he'd say, "How am I doing? How am I doing?" And he would listen to it. And so that's how he, in part, in my opinion, modified his behavior. But he was a public servant, and he was always out there. And, you know, some may be critical of him, but I liked the way he did business as a politician. So we're having town meetings, and one of the things that they should be complaining about, and I'm sure they are, is what's happening with our food and our products and protecting us from dangerous things. And it's just one slice at the problem. And so these town meetings, I think, are sort of reflecting what many more people are feeling and prepared to react to. Now, Senator Bernie Sanders has been out there fighting the oligarchs, and the oligarchs are the ones who are supplying Roundup, and they're taking the profit. And the government's been discouraged to do anything in a policing function about this thing that is known to do this terrible stuff, have these carcinogenics. And however we're going to end this short coil that is a life, it would be nice not to have to end it because of cancer that came from gardening 15 or 20 years earlier with Roundup. Now, in a very small way, out where I am, we're having a meeting on Friday at 6:30 at a place called Ion, which is normally an ice skating rink, and all of that will be, of course, protected. Don't want to get cold feet about having a town meeting. And I believe that the force is going to be constructive. I'm not running it. I'm one of the people participating in a panel. I don't know if we'll have 700 or more than that. All of that is possible. And I say this in part because Sanders and AOC have been getting big crowds. And they've been appearing in right and left-leaning districts. And in Denver, they got 32,000 attendees. So this is a tell to us who are looking for signs that we're fighting back. So Bernie directs our attention to the inauguration, for example. If you want a data point, look who was sitting front and center at the inauguration of he who would be a dictator, Trump. Elon Musk and a gang of billionaires, literally. And Trump shills for his mouthpiece, Elon Musk. I mean, when have you heard or read about anyone selling the product of a supporter or ally from the White House? And we're talking about selling. Bicycles went by, that's cool. From time to time you see it. There are a couple of hills that require a little extra work. So you have Trump selling Elon Musk's car, and you have the Injustice Department by Bondi basically acting as the punisher for those who've been damaging Trump's Tesla, Musk's cars. So that's sort of what we have. Now, forgive me, I was distracted by a few things on the road. Now, the Schumer is in an interview of a decent length this Sunday in the New York Times Magazine section. And they bill it as the Dems are learning how to communicate. Stop the music. How do you get to the U.S. Senate and not know how to communicate? So what am I saying? Well, I think it's a bullshit excuse for failing to use the powers that Schumer and others had, for example, with the continuing resolution. There are things they could do. And some Dems listen to Carville, who basically thinks you should wait for the midterm election. That assumes there's going to be a midterm election. So, and the New York Times, it felt like a propaganda piece. I know that Schumer's come out with a book and people do a book tour, but not everybody has an interview with the New York Times after screwing up as badly as Schumer did. And to stick with Chuck, I think is a difficult thing these days, because we can't afford to do this badly. We have to have our best out there. And Sanders, no spring chicken, has proved that it doesn't matter what your age is if you have something to say. And it's kind of a funny split between AOC at one end of the age spectrum and Bernie at the other. You know, the ageism in America in both directions, young and old, is a big mistake when we have people who have a wisdom body that can lead us to a better place. And that's what we need. And those who keep thinking, this is the template exercise we have from time to time, those who keep thinking, hey, I got time before the midterms. The midterms is not the objective. It can be, it may be, it will be, but it needs not be now. Because now we have a bigger fight on our hands, which is to kill in the cradle the monarchism and dictatorship that Trump and his pawns seek to impose on all of us at the cost of a republic and a democracy. So that's what I got for from the Cathedral of Trees today, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.